Colossians chapter 2, verse 11 and verse 12, my dear brothers and sisters. Colossians chapter 2, verse 11 and verse 12. Let's get back to Ephesians. Verse 20, which he worked in our Savior, the Son of the Most High, when he raised him from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenly places. We gotta go, hold on. Acts chapter 2, verse 23 and 24. Let's get back to Ephesians, verse 21. Far above all principality, far above all principality, because it's principalities in this. But far above all principality and power and might and dominion and every name and every name and every name that is named, not only in this age, but also in that which is to come. My dear brothers and sisters, let's pop off on that Romans block 8. What is that in Romans 8? Let's see. Romans chapter 8. Verse 37. Verse 37 through 38. My dear brothers and sisters. And 39. Romans chapter 8. Verse 37, 38, and 39. All right, we in verse 22 in Ephesians chapter 1. And he put all things under his feet, and he put all things, and he put all things under his feet, and he put all things under his feet, and gave him to be head over all things to the church. And he put all things under his feet, and gave him to be head over all things to the church. My dear brothers and sisters, talked about in Hebrews. Bear with me, brothers and sisters. Hebrews chapter 2. verse 5 through 8. Hebrews chapter 2, verse 5 through 8. My dear brothers and sisters. Let's get back to Ephesians verse 23, which is his body, the fullness of him who fills all in all. My dear brothers and sisters. Let's go to Romans chapter 12, verse 5. Romans chapter 12, verse 5. My dear brothers and sisters. All right, let's get back to this read. Let's get back to this read. Okay, dear brothers and sisters, we got chapter 2, verse 1. Chapter 2, verse 1. And you, we in the book of Ephesians, chapter 2, verse 1. And you he made alive, who were dead in trespasses and sins. Who else was dead in trespasses and sins? My dear brothers and sisters, we go to Galatians chapter 1, verse 1. Also, Galatians chapter 1. Bear with me, brothers and sisters, bear with me. Galatians chapter 3, verse 11. Pardon me, brothers and sisters, for the times. Galatians chapter 3, verse 11. My dear brothers and sisters. And verse 12. Galatians chapter 3, verse 11 and verse 12. My dear brothers and sisters. And verse 13. Galatians chapter 3, verse 11, 12, and verse 13. My dear brothers and sisters. Let's get back to Ephesians. We're in chapter 2, verse 2. In which you once walked according to the course of this world. In which you once walked according to the course of this world. According to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience. And we can jump over to Colossians chapter 3, verse 6. My dear brothers and sisters. We back to Ephesians, verse 3. But that was Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2. The precept is Colossians chapter 3, verse 6. Okay. Verse 3 in Ephesians chapter 2. Among whom also we all once conducted ourselves in the lust of our flesh. Among whom also we all once conducted ourselves in the lust of our flesh. Among whom also we all once conducted ourselves in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others. My dear brothers and sisters. Paul, by nature, was a children of wrath. My dear brothers and sisters. He persecuted the church. My dear brothers and sisters. We can go to 1 Peter. First Peter chapter 4, verse 1, verse 2, verse 3. And verse 4. My dear brothers and sisters. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 1 through verse 4. And I want to throw in verse 4, chapter 4 in 1 Peter. I'm going to read that real quick. In regard to these, they think it strange that you do not run with them in the same flood of dissipation, speaking evil of you. In the same flood of dissipation, dear brothers and sisters, that means debauchery. And what is this? What is the same flood of debauchery? In regard to these, they think it's strange. Who is they? Let's go to verse 3. For we have spent enough of our past lifetime. This is 1 Peter, brothers and sisters. This is 1 Peter. Okay. Chapter 4, verse 3. 1 Peter, chapter 4, verse 3. For we have spent enough of our past lifetime. Once again, this is Peter. First Peter. In doing the will of the Gentiles. This First Peter, right? This is First Peter, yeah. In doing the will of the Gentiles, when we walked in lewdness, lust, drunkenness, my dear brothers and sisters. My dear brothers and sisters. When we walked in lewdness, lust, drunkenness, my dear brothers and sisters. Reveries, drinking parties, and abominable idolatries. In regard to these, they think it strange that you do not run with them. In regard to these, they think it strange that you do not run with them in the same flood of debauchery, speaking evil of you, my dear brothers and sisters. Let's get back to book Ephesians, man. All right. We in verse 4, chapter 2, book of Ephesians. But the Most High, who is rich in mercy, but the Most High, who is rich in mercy, but the Most High, who is rich in mercy because of his great love, because of his great love with which he loved us, my dear brothers and sisters. And that's that John 3:16. But the Most High, who is rich in mercy because of his great love with which he loved us. And that's that John 3:16. And we can jump to let's go back to Romans 10. Romans 10, chapter 10, in Romans, verse 11 and verse 12 and verse 13, my dear brothers and sisters. Let's get back to the book of Ephesians, okay? Verse 5, chapter 2. Even when we were dead in trespasses, even when we were dead in trespasses, even when we were dead in trespasses, made us alive together, made us alive together with the Son of the Most High. By grace, you have been saved. By grace, you have been saved. And that's in Romans chapter 5, verse 6 through 8. Romans chapter 5. Romans chapter 5, verse 6, 7, and 8, my dear brothers and sisters. And chapter 6, all right, if we just look over to chapter 6, verse 3, 4, 5, and 6, my dear brothers and sisters. Let's get back to the book of Ephesians. Oh, yeah. Chapter 2. Okay. Verse 6, by grace you have been saved. chapter 2, verse 6 in the book of Ephesians, and raised us up together and made us sit together in the heavenly places in our Savior. My dear brothers and sisters. And that's just back on Ephesians chapter 1, verse 10.